That's a nice way to start tonight, isn't it? Good reception, good to be back.
Great to be back in Lancashire. 5 fantastic years up here, and that's good to see a lot of old faces.
What are you doing Sunday?
How are you doing? What are you up to nowadays?
I'm just gardening at the moment. My wife gave birth to our 6th child. I'm not Catholic. I think that's the end, so I've got my hands full with that at the moment.
Must be good coming back to Ewood Park, somewhere where you have some great memories from.
Yeah, it is, and as I say, it's a place which is really close to my heart. I had five really good years here, some ups and downs as well. But you know, obviously winning the Premiership title was extremely special and something which I think about quite a lot.
Yeah, we'll come on to that a little bit more in a bit. But do you want to do the shameless plug for the book now?
I could sit there and tell you what a fantastic book it is, but that would be big-headed. But it's a great read.
Why have you done one?
Well, that's the end of my career. I thought it was the right time to do it. I said to you earlier on camera, I didn't play badly at times because I knew I was going to write a book. That's just something. I just had an interesting career. It hasn't all been plain sailing. And to try and put into words my thoughts of certain decisions, certain horrendous decisions which I made, and to give you an idea of what I was thinking.
Was it an easy process? That's the journalist say. Was it an easy process to go through the book? Did you enjoy it?
I did enjoy the majority of it. Things come back to you at times, some more than others. But no, I just tried to be as honest as I possibly could be, which is the whole point of writing a book. And yeah, I think there's some fairly interesting reading, and the twist of a lot of my ex-managers, some of their comments, and I didn't ask them to be favourable, and if you read the book you realise a lot of it isn't favourable. So there you go.
How was that going back to people you played for and saying, look, can you write a little bit about me? Were the nerves thinking, what are they to say?
Well, actually, I didn't do that. I was absolutely gutless and got Mark Guidi, the ghostwriter, to do that.
Have you read the book back? Yeah, have you sort of gone through it again and thought, yeah, I'll told you that?
I haven't gone through it in book form, but I obviously read all the litigation sort of stuff which we had to take out. So no, I'm happy with it. There are always things which you can brush up on, but I think in the end we had a deadline, and we went over that deadline many times, but we got there in the end.
We'll come on to Blackburn in a little bit. Take us back to the very start of your career. Were you always destined for sporting greatness?
I don't know. I don't. No, I was brought up in Norfolk. I was born in Nottingham, brought up in Norfolk, and I was actually rejected. I went to a centre of excellence at Norwich City, and I was rejected at 12. They deemed me not good enough. I have to say, looking back, I was disappointed, but I think I was fairly uncoordinated and a little bit knock-kneed, and things weren't right. And I actually hated football from that moment. I don't know if there's any other people who've had a similar experience or rejection. There are quite a lot of fellas in the room who've been rejected for different reasons over the years. So no, I didn't like football, and I preferred my cricket going through my school years, although I played schoolboy football. Then quickly realised I wasn't going to be good enough at cricket, and got in my final year at school. I did well in a county cup competition and got another opportunity to go for a trial, and then as luck would have it, this trial game we played at a useless team. I mean, absolutely hopeless. I scored 10 goals, and they gave us a 2-year YTS contract, and I never really looked back since.
Did you think when the first opportunity had gone that was it? No more football? And were you serious about cricket at this stage?
Well, I was serious in my mind about cricket, and I played county level, but when I stepped up a level I realised that I was out of my depth, and I didn't like any bowling quicker than 60 miles an hour, which was always going to be a problem. But no, then getting into my football again, once I got the YTS scheme, which was £29.50 a week first year, £35, and a bus pass and a digs. It was an interesting experience. Went in with a lot of streetwise boys from inner London, and it was a real good learning curve for me, coming from a little village on the outside of Norwich, mixing with people who were far more streetwise than myself.
When you look at that, back at that time, you're 16 years old, and you go to a football club, and Norwich were flying pretty high at the time, weren't they? What was it like?
It was a great starting club, as I think back in those days there was more an easier path into professional contracts, into the first teams, if you like, because there just wasn't the depth, there wasn't the foreign influx of players. I think that just started where, I know Blackburn had a few Scandinavian players, but that just the early 90s started off. I think there was a player at Norwich called Henrik Mortensen. He was the first one. I don't know whether anybody would remember him. And it was just that period where the Scandinavians came over. But I got into the first team because there was no one else to pick. It was literally like that. But you have to take your chance.
Could you believe it happened so quickly for you at Norwich then, second time around?
Not really. It was. The ironic thing I found was the boys who had gone up through the schoolboy system when I was rejected at 12, they'd gone up 13, 14, 15, 16, and at 18, they were all rejected. So, in that respect, I don't know whether psychologically a lot of boys think it's going to be a natural progression and it's just going to happen, but when I got the second chance, I was, a lot of it was down to the dad, but I was, I understood about working hard and the importance of practicing, and if I did have any strengths at that age, it was that. And the one thing I could affect was my physical fitness. Putting one foot in front of another, and I was never the quickest player, but I think that put me in good stead.
So how did you cope earning your £29.50 a week or so? Was it good times? You're that age and you're at the football club?
It was a real learning curve, in more ways than one. Christmas was always very interesting, standing up in front of the first team naked, singing a carol. It was an experience I'll never forget. You have to learn. I've just gone to a normal school. You've got to learn to cope in the dressing room environment. And I have to say, in the early days, I used to go in and I was fairly scared and used to sit there and not want to be picked on or people to talk to us. But eventually, I quite enjoyed it.
Sounds like you're saying you're a little bit scared when you're 6 foot goodness knows what, and you're going. You're quite a shy person.
I don't know. We don't know each other that well. Do you?
I know, Lisa. Who's in the first team at that time at Norwich? Who were you sort of looking up to and thinking, I want to play with them, I want to be like them?
Robert Fleck, I suppose a lot of the older supporters would remember him. Tim Sherwood, who I used to clean Tim's boots. I'm proud to say Tim was a really good player. He was a young player. He signed from Watford for Norwich. He used to like a lady or two, Tim did. I don't know what I should say that. Ian Crook was a fantastic player. I thought he was, if he could actually run and tackle and head, he would have played any time. All joking aside, he was such a talented football player, passer of the ball, and I think that was through the likes of him and Rural Fox who really helped my career progress, and the experienced players in the team. And I do believe, had I been at a different club, I wouldn't have been lucky enough to progress, because a lot of the goals I scored, the chances, were from the likes of those two.
You obviously went to play a lot with Tim, your time here as well. Did he let you forget about the cleaning the boots? You did stop at some point, didn't you?
But yeah, he did. He paid me, I think, £20 at Christmas for that. I don't know whether that was one of them where he was being a little bit flash in front of the other players and regretted it after. But no, Tim was he was good to the young players, and he was a massive figure at Blackburn and very inspirational.
So coming onto the scene at Norwich, going into the first team, how did it all happen?
Well, I think the first game was against Coventry. I was sub and I came on and I actually scored the winner. I sort of shinned it in. I think I scored many goals like that for Blackburn. And then the second game I played was at centre half. I came on as sub. I think one of the centre halves got a convenient hamstring injury and came on against Ian Rush. And from there I took my chance. I was fortunate that the 7-1 game against Blackburn wasn't my first game. Probably would have been a different story.
You talk about centre half there, obviously centre forward perhaps more known for scoring all the goals. At what point did you decide, right, that's what I want to do, be a striker?
Well, I didn't decide. I went down to the club as a striker, and then they moulded me into playing both positions. They had a coach at the time called David Williams. I don't know whether anybody would remember him. He went to Manchester United as a youth, I think, to develop the youth there, who again had a big influence. Norwich was a club similar to West Ham in their philosophy and the way they wanted to play football. And I'm very grateful because I think I was taught well there.
Was there ever a point where a coach said, "Look, we think you should be a centre half"?
I think until they saw me play, they now thought I don't know. It was down to who was available at the time, because there was an injury, and they thought I was capable of playing in that position, which in the end I always felt on the positive side. It was always a string to my bow. I know some players, playing in so many different positions, that can work against them, but I think throughout my career that's been a help.
Must have been very good times at Norwich when you were in the first team. As we mentioned at that time, Norwich were really flying high in the Premier League. And how was it for a young lad being part of that?
It's tremendous. We actually had a chance of winning the Premier League. Again, I don't know whether anybody can remember. I can't even remember what year it was. 93, yeah. And we played Manchester United and Aston Villa over the Easter period, both at home, so we thought we had a chance. I think Manchester United beat us 3-1. We went 3-0 down. I think 2 of the goals were my fault, probably 3 if you ask the rest of the team. And then we lost to Villa 1-0 and subsequently finished third, I think, which was a fantastic achievement. That was the 7-1 year at Blackburn. Ian Butterworth, who was the Norwich captain at the time, I learned a lot that day because he was quite shrewd, and he said to the local paper, he told me to keep my head up after the game. And I do remember him, Alan Shearer, putting him on his backside on the track. So that was good deflecting from him in particular. So I learned a lot that day.
Would that have been your first taste of E1 at 7-1?
Yeah, and I think we played in a Blackburn in a cup competition and lost 2-0, which was a massive relief for us all on the coach on the way home. We thought that was wonderful losing 2-0 when we lost 7-1.
What was it like facing Alan Shearer then?
Well, that was him and Roy Wegley, I think, played. And yeah, I mean, he was exceptionally strong. I played at centre half against him when he played at Southampton. I didn't know a lot about him then, as probably he was just coming onto this scene, emerging. And I just remember he was exceptionally strong, very powerful, and again I think standing next to him, I thought, got the height advantage here, but he was tremendous in the air, tremendous sprint. He's went on to great things at Blackburn throughout his career.
You started scoring lots of goals at Norwich. What point were you aware that the interest was there from other clubs? I used to buy the papers every morning. And, it was. I had a period, again, fortunate to get up front at the end of, I think that would have been the 92-93 season. A couple of injuries, and I went up front the last 10-15 games and scored a number of goals. I think at that stage even the management at Norwich were unsure, but obviously with the goals going in, then I stayed up
up there the following pre-season. I think we signed Darren Beckford, if anybody remember him, and I was concerned for my place. But did quite well in the pre-season in Sweden and kept my position. And that's where we started the season. We lost the first game to Manchester United and then came to Ewood, thinking, oh God, Blackburn again, and we beat them 3-2. And then went to Ellen Road and beat Leeds 4-0 on the Saturday.
Was that the year that Norwich were in Europe as well, and that terrific run?
Yeah, that was an incredible year. We had a good side on, some good players on the day. We were capable of beating anybody. It was when Mike Walker took over, and we had a very peculiar system. We started to shell goals, and he played a back five, which was unheard of really at that stage. We played 3 centre halves and 2 full backs. I know that the way was to have wing backs as the games progressed, but and again, F and Akuku had come into the team, and if you actually saw him in training, you would have thought he was a butcher or a baker. But he paid to train with us, but he had such phenomenal pace. And I think everybody will remember the 4 goals he scored at Everton. Well, you obviously don't.
I've never been one.
So no, but we had a real counter-attack threat with the likes of him and Rolf Fox, and again it was good for my game because I could flick things on, hook things on, and he was so quick that he made a pretty average pass or could make it a good one.
What were you like in training? Were you one of those that would turn up and put it in 100% every day?
At that stage, yes. I mean, when I was younger, certainly through the youth team into the reserves, the first team, the young players weren't allowed to slacken off in any shape or form, and I think that's exceptionally important to this today. You're trying to impress and get on and aspiring to be as good as you can be.
Who was the biggest influence on your career at that stage? I know you touched on your dad before.
Yeah, I think my dad was the biggest influence. He played professionally, played at Carlisle and Chester and Norwich. But he always, as I say, I don't want to keep boring you to tears and going over old ground, but fitness was always a big thing for me. And if I went out and I felt I was fit, that gave me confidence if I could run for 90 minutes. So I used to work exceptionally hard on my fitness.
How did the move to Blackburn come about? How did you end up here?
Well, they bid £5 million and Norwich accepted it.
You're going to learn something new every day, aren't you? Was it a pretty straightforward decision then?
Yeah, it was in the end. There was a lot of interest, or supposed interest, and I think two clubs, Arsenal and Blackburn, the fee was agreed, and it was interesting the way it all unfolded, because the Norwich chairman at the time was Robert Chase. You probably won't remember because you don't remember a lot. He was the chairman at the time, and I'd actually signed for Blackburn. I'd come up earlier and signed for Blackburn at Robert Core's house. I don't know, you know who Robert Core is? He then called a press conference and said that he would test the water, and if I wasn't at Norwich at the start of the next season, then he would be. If you understand, he'd given up. But I'd already signed for Blackburn, so it was quite a strange experience sitting there lying.
Did he go then?
Did he go?
Was the Chase?
No, he didn't. That was what was strange.
What was the biggest factor in you coming in? You said that Arsenal were interested as well. What swung it for Rovers?
Blackburn were the up-and-coming team, and the team who finished second the season before, Kenny Dalglish and Alan Shearer, big goal threat. So no, all seemed really good. It was a good choice.
The whole move went swimmingly?
I sort of know where we're going here. Went really well.
How was the press conference?
Yeah, I don't remember a lot about it. I just felt slightly tired.
So Kenny is obviously a big factor. Did you have much of a chance to speak to him before the move? Did it work like that then? And did you think, I'm going because Kenny is a legend?
Yeah, I think that's completely fair to say. And growing up, I wasn't a Liverpool fan, but I think everybody knew who Kenny Dalglish was. And Blackburn was the club on the up. I mean, people may compare it to Manchester City nowadays, but I think Blackburn was the up and coming club. And selfishly, I wanted to win things.
Did you think at the start of that season when you signed that we would be challenging for the title that year and ultimately winning it?
Well, you don't know, but I knew with the players Blackburn had, and who were bringing in the likes of Tim Flowers, David Batty, who subsequently got injured. Paul Warhurst was another player who was really up and coming at that stage, and of course the previous season Alan Shearer was phenomenal. So I knew they'd push Manchester United all the way. I remember they gained a 2-0 victory at Ewood. Shearer left foot and a fantastic header, but obviously the contenders.
What worked so well with you and Alan Shearer, that partnership that season?
It was just a goal machine. I think you'd be the first to admit that we had two fantastic wingers. Probably that season knackered them out for the rest of their career. I mean, they're just incredible. Just unbelievable athletes, and it's easy to say you can't fail, but when you get that sort of supply, it does help.
The whole team had a nice blend about it that season, I guess, because you got the experience of the Colin Hendrys and the Tim Flowers. Was it just a special time, a special group?
I think so, and money doesn't guarantee you anything. You have a better chance if you've got better players, but the players have to gel together. I wouldn't say we were a particularly old team in terms of experience. I don't think you might know that. I don't think any of us had won the Premiership before. Well, not many, I think, now. And so, to get over the line was quite an achievement. But when you get in sport, when you get a bit of momentum, we had that run, I think, of 10 wins on the trot, and you do feel invincible. And when we had some of the players we had in the team, the likes of Colin Hendry, at times you think, somebody's going to score, and all of a sudden you see this mad Scotsman throw his body across, and what bloody hell did he do? It was just incredible, and that's ultimately what got us over the line.
Were there a few characters in that squad as well? What was it like away from the football, day-to-day training?
There was certainly, one or two characters,
Who were they? Who were the biggest ones?
Well, they were all different types. I think Jason Wilcox was a bit of a joker. But they were interesting. Stuart Ripley, always never sure. He's actually a solicitor now, and a lot of people may know. I always thought he'd turn into a serial killer, Stuart. He was quite deep. And then I think everybody looked up to Tim Sherwood.
Jason's been here before, and he sort of confessed himself he was a bit of a joker. Were you one that would be alongside him playing pranks on people?
Not really. I mean, he was the main one. The fire. I mean, everybody got wise to it eventually. The sort of fire extinguisher stuff, and knock on the door after a month of getting soaked. You wise up, don't you? That one, I'll clear off, Jason.
Was there ever a temptation to get him back in spectacular fashion and really get together and sort him out?
No, I can't remember really. I think he would have got us come up and
How important, back to the football, how important was the start you made that season? Because you really hit the ground running. When you come to a new club, how important is that?
I think it was extremely important. When you're a striker, you get up and running in the goals. And at Norwich, I was under no real pressure. I'd come up through the ranks. I felt I couldn't lose at Norwich because we played with Manchester United, your Blackburns, and if you lost, nobody
nobody would expect any different. And if you beat them and did a good run in Europe, it was all euphoric, and then you move for a big fee, and where everybody before you moved is saying, well, this and that is wonderful. All of a sudden you move for, which was 5 million at the time, and it was bloody hopeless. And you know, people doubt you, and I was young at the time, and it's hard. It was, you know, I wasn't used to real criticism, and it was the first time I'd experienced it, and naturally I didn't like it.
Were you conscious of the thing?
Yes, I was. You know, I stuck in a hotel and you'd read things, and you know, as I say, if I was 30, 32 and had the experience, I think I would have understood things better. Hindsight's a wonderful thing, but at that age, you know, you want to do well. But fortunately, I was in a team which was good enough and created enough opportunities to help me out.
At what point during that season then did you think we're on it, we could win this?
Well, we were always going well. You know, I think at home before Christmas, I can't remember exactly, but we seemed to score 3 goals most home games. And you just feel, I mean, some of the players, but Shearer in particular, is when he got down the side of the box, you just think goal. I mean, it just became expected, and that's not being arrogant. But when you're in the team, you expect to win. You think if he gets a chance as a goal, it becomes normal. And then when you play for a lesser club, or things don't go so well, you know, you don't expect things to go in. But that season, everything seemed to happen up until the last 5 games where we stumbled.
Well, is the one goal, one game that stand out to you from that season?
Not really. I think the important goal was the goal at QPR, which was we were put us 9 points clear with 5 games to go. We all thought we'd cracked it getting on the coach, but we don't know whether it was. I wouldn't say it was purposeful. We wanted to give supporters a little bit of excitement, but not panning out quite the way it did.
Excitement strong half attack on the last day. What was it like going to Anfield on the coach that day?
I don't know. I can only speak for myself. I think after 10 minutes, I was, you know, you might have thought in a lot of games I got knackered, but I really felt knackered. I think we were drained. You know, we had some real opportunities to put the title to rest. I mean, at the home game, Manchester City, we lost 3-2, who were a struggling side, and then, you know, Tim Flowers, his performance against Newcastle, I think that was the performance which won us the league. Although he needs to learn his interview technique. But no, I think everybody felt the same way in the last game, and you know, we had to get the same result as United, and you know, spoke about it earlier, but Jamie Redknapp's goal didn't affect things that much. We had to win the game if they won the game, and looking back, I'm just glad we didn't have to watch that game. United, West Ham, and it was incredible.
What was it like at the final whistle then? I think before that we heard news that we'd won it, before the final whistle even though. What's the emotion then?
I think it was relief. That was the overriding emotion for me, because I mean, you might deem me as negative, but I thought, what if, you know, we're so far in front, it's not like we'd come up from behind and you know, snuck home at the death. You know, I think it was just pure relief, and I think that was like that for a good few days after, and then, you know, I settled in to quite enjoying it.
How did it feel from the players' point of view to have won it with this club as well? A club that have come such a long way in such a short time.
It just felt incredible. It was my first season at the club. You know, it's a club steeped in tradition. It isn't, and it certainly wasn't one of the biggest clubs in terms of its fan base, but that's what makes it so special. And you know, the likes of Blackburn winning a title again will be extremely difficult for clubs like Blackburn, and you know, and your Norwiches and your supposedly clubs with not the biggest support, you know, but you know, there's a feeling, there's a tradition, there's an intensity of the fans which makes this club extremely special.
Did you think after we won it once that we will go on and do it again and build on what we've done?
I did. I thought looking back, losing Kenny Dalglish was a big thing. I don't think we realised it at the time. And again, maybe a lack of real experience and age in our dressing room might have been a factor. I think we just thought it was going to be natural to go on then, and historically, if you look back, sides who have freshened things up as such have been the sides who have gone on to win back-to-back titles or gone close. I think, being honest, the second season or the season after winning the title was a bit of an anticlimax.
Did Kenny ever sit you guys down and say, right, I'm moving upstairs a little bit, give you reasons for it? How surprised were you when you heard?
I think we were all surprised, or I was certainly surprised, but he didn't really give us reasons. Did he you?
No. I tried calling him, but blocked me. How different was it the following season then? Because Kenny was still sort of there, wasn't he? But wasn't the man in charge.
I don't know what a director of football is or does, and I don't know what the description is. So, it's difficult to know what impact he had as such in that respect. That's only a question which he would be able to answer, and Ray Harford would be able to clarify.
How different were they? Was it easy for Ray to sort of step up from being coach to manager?
I don't think it's ever easy to make that transition, because I think naturally as a coach, I had it at Norwich with John Dean, who was the coach, and he then became manager. And players treat coaches differently than they do managers. Managers are aloof and away from it, and that's how. And I suppose they have to be on the basis that they can't. They'd like to joke and whatever. When it comes to dropping a player, you can't be deemed to. You shouldn't be deemed to be having friendship. So it's always difficult, that initial transition. Some people carry it off. But in the end, we go all through that sort of stuff. But that's about players, and the players didn't perform. We didn't perform well enough the second season. I think that can happen, and the fans always look to the manager and blame, but the players have to take responsibility.
I think it was a couple of years after that you had your best goal scoring season here alongside Kevin Gallagher. Kevin was a big part of that. Very different kind of player to Alan Shearer.
Kevin was an extremely clever player. I met him actually earlier today. Quite fat, He was a really clever footballer. In the season I came in, he had a leg break and was unfortunate. And in the second season, I think he probably could play wide right and come in. But he was a really intelligent footballer. Very clever, could score goals, and suited my game. I knew what I could do, but I was limited at certain things, and I always felt my strengths were playing with another striker who would play off me, where I could be a sort of focal point, someone for the team to hit, and people like Kevin who were clever enough to use my flicks to his advantage.
You had a great partnership on the pitch with Alan Shearer. What was it like off the pitch?
Yeah, I think we got on fine. I mean, as we're in a working environment, I think people read too much into that as such. At the time, they expected us to have a great relationship off the pitch, which, we got on fine. I've seen him since. I think coming to the club, I maybe felt that I was breaking up the Newell-Shearer partnership with the previous season, and at the time probably didn't feel as comfortable as I should have done in that respect. And again, with the benefit of hindsight, I wouldn't have worried so much, had I been 30. But I was conscious, and I wanted to play with Alan. That was a big part of me coming to Blackburn.
Who were your best pals here at the time you were here?
Ian Pearce was a good pal, and unfortunately Billy McKinley.
Hard job.
Yeah, so I still speak to Billy now, and well, I say that I speak, I listen.
Has he still got the dyed blonde hair, or is that gone?
He hasn't known us that. He phoned me, he was outraged. He's in the book, there's a picture of him where he says he looks like an albino.
happened for you at club level, but not international level. Why not?
Never guess. No, I made a decision which, you know, again in hindsight was a particularly poor decision. At the time I felt it was justified, but looking back I was pretty stupid.
What was that phone call like with Glenn Hamilton? It was part of the big internationals.
We got on great with Glenn and no, I was angry. I just felt that at that time, I think if I remember rightly, I'd been in the previous World Cup, got the first cap against Cameroon, and the 2 months leading up to the next game, my form had actually been quite good. I'd scored goals, and I felt that being big headed, my form was good enough to be warranted being selected. And I think people jumped in who hadn't been doing so well. I think in fairness, Michael Owen, who was a tremendous striker in the end, he was young, and I felt that was unwarranted, and it made my opinion known, which isn't the smartest thing to do.
You say you regret it now. Is that one of the biggest things from your playing career, just that one cap for England?
Yeah, I think that's a major regret. In all honesty, I think that when it came to the major tournaments, would I have played against in front of the likes of Shearer, Sheringham, Ferdinand, Ian Wright, and I don't honestly know whether I would have done. I think the partnership with Alan was such that it was a possibility, but there were some good players around at the time. Robbie Fowler, was another one, Andy Cole, and a lot of good strikers around. I think in general I would have got more caps. I went through this phase where they were given swapping teams at half time. So against the likes of the Cook Islands and Papua New Guinea, maybe I would have okay, but probably not in the major tournaments. But that is, I made a poor decision and never gave myself the opportunity to give myself a chance of being selected, and that's something I deeply regret.
Did you try to sort of ring someone up and say, I made a bit of a mistake there?
I didn't have any friends by that stage.
How tough was your last year at Blackburn? Not just for you, but for everybody at the club as well.
It was tough. I was sorry to see Roy Hodgson go, really. I think he was a big plus for me when he came in. We had the fantastic season the season before, where we were in front at Christmas, at the top of the league, and we grew up after Christmas. I thought we really galvanised the players, but we lost Colin Hendry in the summer. I think Kevin Gallagher was injured, and we didn't start well, and obviously the change was made. I didn't play overly much that season. I was always chasing the tails through trying to get back from injury, and it was bitterly disappointing again.
That summer you ended up moving to Chelsea, which on paper looked a great move for Chelsea, but you didn't quite happen there. What went wrong?
Everything. I think again, touched on. I think I went for a big fee. I hadn't gone into it by playing a lot of games the previous season. That's not an excuse. I blame myself. I didn't start well. I think I lost confidence, and I think when you lose confidence and you're a striker, if you hesitate, then you're finished. And I think I hesitated at times. They had some fantastic players. I don't know whether I gelled as well as I could have done with Zola, who I can't say we were the same sort of player, far from it. But we both like to come to the ball and be a focal point in different ways, where I always felt I was a better player with people running off my flicks, if that makes sense. But I only blame myself. I didn't play well enough, and deserved a lot of the criticism. I didn't score enough goals, and that's the way it goes at the Sharp End.
You sound like you're your own biggest critic, and you sound quite harsh on yourself when you talk about these times.
But no, that's the truth of it, and I think you can look for outs, and you can say the team didn't play to a certain way, but I had chances. But as I say, I think as a striker, that's the one position I think is the hardest position. You just can't hesitate. You can't have a doubt. You have to be instinctive. and I think I lost my edge that particular season.
It's funny how things work out in football, isn't it? A year after Chelsea and then moving to Celtic, and I've already seen a couple of Celtic shirts over there. I moved to a massive city, a massive club. Did you realise what you were going into when you made that move?
Not really. I'd heard a lot about the rival. I'd seen the gates they got, but I think I was very lucky to go to Celtic at that particular time with Martin O'Neill taking over. And again, there's another great striker in there who I thought would suit my game.
What was it like playing for one of the Glasgow clubs? Because you hear about the rivalry between Rangers and Celtic. Just how close is it?
It's, unless you visit, it's difficult to explain. It's like no other city I've played in. The intenseness of the rivalry is there, and walking out from my first Old Firm, and it was hair standing up on the back of your neck. You feel there is hatred, and you feel it, and in some ways that makes it exciting. That there's, although it's a two-horse race, you can argue that a lot of the years in England when Blackburn and Manchester United were. So no, I mean, if you play it there, you have to win. A draw is a defeat.
Is it as intense as everybody makes out? Was there ever a time when you hear some of the stories? I think it happened to Neil Lennon, who you played with. Have you ever experienced anything like that?
Not really. I mean, with Lenny, when anybody said to him on a night out, you're hopeless, he used to have an argument with him for an hour. Where most of the players used to just agree and carry on.
How good was that time for Celtic for your career?
It's brilliant, and I appreciated that time in my career greatly, because I'd had the bad season at Chelsea, where I had in different patches, even when I was at Blackburn. When I moved up to Celtic, I started enjoying my football again after my experience at Chelsea, and I appreciated it and never wanted it to end. 5 great years under Martin O'Neill.
Under Martin O'Neill, did it sort of sour a little bit towards the end?
Well, when Martin left, I was,
You then moved back south, Birmingham and Aston Villa. What happened after that, the end of your career? How did it all come to a stop, your days as a player?
Well, I damaged my eye. I had it was Gordon Strachan's first game, actually, and I went to block a shot, and Neil Lennon came across, and as I was getting up, he put his knee through my face. He fractured my cheek in 4 places. And he actually had the cheek, this is typical him, to say that I'd actually injured his knee. He had the treatment on his knee for a week. But I had blurred vision after the operation, in my right eye, and went to Aston Villa under Martin O'Neill. He signed me. It's interesting when he signed me, he said, "We're absolutely bloody desperate, so will you come and help us out?" I did. And I enjoyed playing under him again. But I did an incident in a game where I took a knock to my head, and that was it.
So when that day comes to say, that's it?
Yeah, I think so. Again, I didn't expect the game against Manchester United on the 23rd of December. I didn't expect that to be my last game. But I don't think there are many instances where there's a perfect ending. When you finish playing football, you finish playing, that's never going to be nice.
That wasn't your last experience in football, obviously. You then went into management. Will you do it again?
I think so. The right opportunity came about. I mean, I learned a hell of a lot. Some good things and some bad things, but there's nothing like playing in that respect. As a manager, you actually have to work more than 2 hours a day, and it's tough.
Sounds terrible. No, you can have a little break now as well, because we're going for 3/4 of an hour. After the break, we'll have your questions, but for now, everybody, Chris Sutton.
Hey!